Hey, thanks so much for stopping by. I am just about ready to get started making some sauerkraut. This is our yearly big batch of sauerkraut that we make all at once that lasts us a year. So I'm excited to get going, and I'm glad that you're here to see the process too. Because making sauerkraut does not have to be complicated. Really, all you need is cabbage, salt, and a jar. And it's one of the most amazing and beneficial probiotic foods out there. It has so many benefits. I'm not even going to go into all the time to talk about all the benefits, because I'm sure that if you're here, you already know those and you just want to know how to make it. I'll talk about them more at the end, but let's go ahead and get started. So it's true, all you need is cabbage, salt, and a jar. So you don't have to make a giant batch like I am right now. If you don't want to, you can make any amount. You can make a pint jar, a quart jar. Sometimes what I do is I make it in a 5-gallon crock, but you can use smaller crocks too. It's really so fast and easy. It's just like 10 minutes, and then the rest of it is just sitting on the counter, letting all those microbes do their amazing work. So you can use green or red cabbage for this. You can use sea salt or a rock salt. I'm using pink Himalayan today. My favorite is actually Baja Gold sea salt. I'm out of that sadly right now, but pink Himalayan will work. You just want a nice quality mineral salt. I'm doing just the super basic sauerkraut today. That's just cabbage and salt, but you can add other things. You can add shredded carrots. I've even made it adding little pieces of apple. You can add caraway seeds, all kinds of fancy things, or you can just keep it basic like I'm doing today. So this is literally the easiest way to make sauerkraut that there is. There's no fuss, no extra steps, nothing. This is the busy mom of 5 young kids who also runs a business and needs to get sauerkraut made in a short amount of time. That's what this is. So let's get started. So the first thing that I'm doing is taking a nice looking outer leaf off. So if there's any leaves that look kind of sketchy, like kind of brown and not that great, I'll take them off and discard them. But I also want to get a few nice whole leaves because I'm not using any fancy equipment here either. I use fermentation weights in some of my other ferments, like my pickles, my fermented jalapenos, my fermented carrot sticks, unless I pack those in the jar. So never mind, I take that back about the carrot sticks. I usually pack those in there so they don't need a weight. But I do use weights for my pickles, my jalapenos, and my salsa. But I don't use them for sauerkraut because I like to use the traditional trick of saving the whole cabbage leaf and then using that to keep everything submerged. So I just want to go through and take a couple. Oh, my oven's beeping at me. I've got something else going that I'm going to have to check. But what I want to do is take about 2 whole cabbage leaves off of the outsides of these and set them aside. That one looks a little sketchy, so it's going to go to my chickens. It's okay if they tear a little bit because we're going to be folding them up. But what these are going to do is they're going to sit at the top of the jar and they're going to hold all the small pieces down under the brine. Once we have our leaves, so again about 2 leaves per cabbage is what I like to do just to make sure that I have plenty for what I'm doing. The next thing is to shred our cabbage. So you can cut your cabbage finely with a knife, but what I prefer to do is to use my food processor and shred it that way. And when I do that using the food processor, I don't cut the core of the cabbage out. I just leave it. All you have to do is just cut your cabbage into pieces that you can feed into your food processor. And then we can just start shredding. Okay, my food processor is getting pretty full. I think I can finish up this cabbage. I can usually fit 1 cabbage head in my food processor at a time. It's kind of pushing it. It's pretty full. There's a little piece stuck there. There we go. Okay, and at this point, we get to start packing into jars. So some water in there because I just recently washed these. So when you're fermenting, you want to make sure everything's very clean, your produce, your equipment, everything. You don't need to do like a bleach solution or anything, but just hot soapy water is good. So then at this point, we're going to start clean hands. We're going to start packing the sauerkraut into the jars, the cabbage, the shredded cabbage. It's not sauerkraut yet. So you notice that I'm not doing a pounding process or a massaging process or anything like that. I have done that before, but like I said, I have 5 young kids and I run a business and I have a lot of commitments and I have to make this happen quickly. So what I do is I will put this in there and loosely, see how it's pretty much filling the jar most of the way. I will grab something like this big wooden spoon that I have and start packing it down. And then what I will do is I will add 1 of my tablespoons of salt. So my ratio when I'm fermenting is 1 tablespoon of salt per quart of your ferment. This is a half-gallon jar, so it's 2 quarts. So keep watching because we're going to add the 2nd tablespoon in a little bit. That's about as full as I'm going to let that get. And then we're going to press it down some more. I might actually do a little bit more. You may be able to get like, if the cabbages are not too big, you can kind of get about 1 head per half-gallon jar. But if the cabbages are bigger, then that doesn't quite work. All right, so then we shove it down and that looks good. I don't like them to be more full than about the shoulder, so this looks really good. All right, and then in goes our 2nd tablespoon of salt. Okay, and then next comes our cabbage leaf. Which one do I want to use first here? I think I'll use this one. So what I do, I fold all the edges under so that it's flat on top and all the edges are folded under, and I want it to be about the size of the top of the sauerkraut. So then you know what, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, a little more spread out, because I want it to really cover, to keep all those small bits from floating up as much as possible. Some probably still will, because they generally do, and it's not a problem, but as much as possible I like to keep those in. And then what I do is add water to cover. Okay, so you can see the jar there. Shredded sauerkraut down below. Our big leaf. The water level is already going down because there's so much air that it's displacing, or air that's, you know, coming up. And so you just have to watch for that as you're going and just keep adding water until it stops doing that. But that's what it looks like when you have it all put together. So I'm going to put this aside and I'm going to work on my next jar just to kind of recap the process again. And after I do that, I'm going to talk about what you need to know about the fermentation process, because there's lots of questions that come up when it comes to making sauerkraut. Lots of things to know. You know what? We only used 1 of those, and I think I'm only going to need 1 per. Yeah, so we'll probably go ahead and shred the rest of these. Actually, I'll save 1 just in case I do need another jar, but I think it's okay to shred these. There's lots of questions that come up when you're making sauerkraut and other fermented foods, especially for the first time when you're new to it. Seems kind of freaky to be letting something rot on your counter. That's kind of what fermentation is. It's controlled spoilage, sort of. We keep the salt amount correct so that no pathogenic bacteria can develop, but there's definitely bacteria developing. Lots of friendly bacteria when you're fermenting. There we go. Now that we're done with the noisy part again, I'll talk some more about what you need to know for the rest of the fermentation process. So once everything is jarred up, you're going to let these sit at room temperature out of direct sunlight for at least 5 to 7 days, but it can sit much longer. So in fact, when I make these, I make a whole bunch of them, like anywhere from 6 to 12 half-gallon jars to last us for the year. And I don't keep them in the refrigerator. I try to find the coolest place that I can keep them in the house. And usually it ends up being my laundry room. But it's still room temperature. And it works just fine because there's just no way that I have refrigerator space for this many jars. So, and it works fine. I've been doing it that way for years. So what will happen is during the first several days of it sitting on the counter, it'll expand and the brine will usually bubble out, and you'll look at it and you'll be like, wow, that's not submerged anymore, because it isn't. So what you have to do when you see that happening, you may have to do it more than once, but what you do when you see that happening is you take the lids off, take something like your big wooden spoon, and press everything back down under the brine. And then when I do that, if I looks like I need to keep everything submerged, then I will add another sprinkle of salt and some more water. Press everything down, make sure it's all very well submerged, and then put the lid back on nice and tight. And then I check it again, usually after the first 1 to 2 weeks. It will settle down and it will not expand and bubble up like that anymore. But I do keep an eye on them for the first 1 to 2 weeks to see if I need to go back, press anything down, add another sprinkle of salt and some more water. Second thing of salt. So I'll go in and check them regularly, about once every month, and just make sure that everything is still submerged. And if I need to, I'll add another little bit of water. At that point, you know, months in, I don't usually add more salt. I just do that initially when things are really bubbling up and needing to be pressed down and more stuff added. But ongoing after that, over the course of the rest of the months, then I don't add more salt. Just water as needed. But I usually try to keep those lids on there nice and tight so that it does not evaporate. And then they're good to go. They can sit there and ferment for months. You can start, what we'll do is we'll start eating the first one after about a week or two, after it's fermented for about a week or two. And then we'll just go through the rest of the jars throughout the course of the rest of the year and pulling out a new one as we need it. So I have actually 3 more cabbage heads that I haven't even brought in here yet. But I want to just go ahead and show the rest of the process because you don't need to watch me do all of that. But this one that I just did is still bubbling a bit. This one's settled down quite a bit. I don't see more bubbles coming up, so I'm going to add some more water, and then I'll have to watch this one. It's going to need more water as it continues to lose its air. My favorite lids are actually the plastic storage lids. I know that if you've watched a lot of my fermentation videos, I like those metal canning lids, the ring and the flat, and that's because we want to pay attention to pressure for a lot of ferments. But for this, we know it's going to be great at room temperature forever, so I don't worry about that. I use these plastic ones and I just tighten them on there nice and tight. I will have to come back after this one's done bubbling and add some more water, but I'll keep an eye on it. So I just tighten these up there nice and tight, and then when I go to store them around the corner in my laundry room or wherever they're going, I will put a towel underneath them because, like I said, over the course of the next 1 to 2 weeks, when they really start fermenting and they expand, and a lot of brine oftentimes bubbles out during that step. So I'll put that under there to catch the extra brine that might come out, and then push everything down and add some more, a sprinkle of salt, some more water to keep everything very packed down and very submerged. Put the lid on nice and tight, and then I just keep that close eye for those first 2 weeks, doing that if I need to. Usually I just have to do it once, sometimes twice. It's warm this time of year, so I might have to do it twice, depending on how active they are. But then after that, it's just checking on them now and then to make sure that they still have enough liquid and they're still submerged. So that is the process. That is the easiest sauerkraut on the planet. So again, the ideal temperature range for these is room temperature, so somewhere around 70 degrees for just an initial fermentation, or a bit cooler than that is really good too. And then for their long-term storage, if you can be like a cool, not as cold as the refrigerator, not as warm as normal room temperature, but root cellar temperature is perfect. So like I said, I don't have that, so I just do room temperature all the time, and that works fine too. I've never had a problem. So let's talk about some common things that can come up in troubleshooting, things to know to make sure that you're not dealing with spoilage or mold or anything. So if you are seeing signs of mold, then you know either your ferment was not submerged enough or you did not use enough salt. If you do see mold on a ferment, you do have to throw it away because that would not be safe. But the other thing that you can see sometimes on a ferment, especially sauerkraut, is something that's called calm yeast. And it is harmless. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't taste great though. It adds kind of a weird sour flavor, kind of reminds me of like a lemony citrus, but not in a good way type of a flavor. And also a weird slimy texture as well. It's not harmful though. So what that looks like is a white fuzzy kind of a velvety thing that can form on the top of your ferment. If you see that, that's also a sign that you're not getting you're not using quite enough salt. So if your salt level is good, you shouldn't be seeing calm yeast either. Also, making sure that all your equipment is very clean beforehand can help prevent calm yeast as well. So if you do see something like that, you can scrape off the layers that have the calm yeast, throw those away, and then add more salt and more water, and hopefully not have a problem with it coming back. And if you do see that happening on a regular basis, just keep in mind I need to be adding more salt the next time I make ferments. So if you are new to making sauerkraut, I do encourage you to start with a small batch, a small jar, like a quart jar is a great size to start with. That way you can get comfortable with the process, and if there is anything that goes wrong, then you don't have to throw away a huge amount. And so get comfortable, get used to it with a smaller amount first, and then once you really know what you're doing, you can do giant batches like this. So I have a full blog post with a printable recipe card that talks about how to make sauerkraut this exact same way, and I'll link that down below in case you'd like to grab it. But I hope that you found this interesting and helpful, and I hope that you give it a try. If you do, take a picture and tag me on Instagram. My Instagram username is in the description. I also have a bunch of free things for you, free goodies that I've made for you down in the description box. I have free ebooks, I have other things that I've made for you, meal plans, all kinds of great stuff. So check that out. And if you did like this video, give it a thumbs up. That really means a lot to me and it helps my channel. And if you enjoy videos like this about from scratch, nutrient-dense cooking in a farmhouse kitchen, stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.